Have you ever wondered what would happen if every gym leader in Pokemon became a champion? What would the underwhelming Roxanne look like if she became champion? Today I'm going to create a well-balanced team for every gym leader as if they were champion. As a disclaimer, I'm only picking Pokemon from the regional and national Pokedex that gym leader lives in, as I want to create a unique team for every leader. Don't forget to subscribe and let's jump right into it. Starting with Brock. His Geodude evolves into a Golem and his weak Onix evolves into Steelix. I know I said I was only picking from regional dex Pokemon, but if a Pokemon is in the regional dex and later gets an evolution, it's fair game. I also took his Vulpix and evolved into Ninetales from the anime. He also used a Blissey and a Crobat from the anime, so we can give those to him. And for his final Pokemon, I wasn't sure what to give him. However, I learned he used a Slowbro Pokemon Stadium 2, so I decided to give that to him. For Misty, she keeps her Ace Psyduck, which is now evolved into a Golduck. She also keeps her Starmie from the games. In Stadium 1, she uses Dugtrio and an Exeggutor. In Stadium 2, she uses a Nidoqueen and a Dragonair. So let's just evolve that into a Dragonite and we're good to go. Surge was a bit trickier. He keeps his Ace Raichu from the core games. In terms of other Pokemon, I did something different by giving him a Blastoise. He never used this Pokemon, but I gave it to him because he was in the army and Blastoise has guns. In Stadium 2, he has a Porygon 2, so we can just give that to him and evolve it into a Porygon Z. And for his last Pokemon, I settled on giving him a Pidgeot because for some reason this thing is related to war. Next is Erica. She keeps her Ace Vileplume, which is a pretty weak Ace. She only used grass types, and champions need to have well-balanced teams, so once again I relied on Stadium. In Stadium 1, the only non-grass Pokemon she uses is a Dugong. In Stadium 2, she uses Marowak, Blissey, and Ninetales. However, we're missing a Pokemon. Erica is said to only use pretty Pokemon. The term pretty is in quotes because, well, I don't think any of these guys are really pretty. There is actually a category of cute Pokemon that do feature a handful of Generation 1 Pokemon. Ultimately, I went with Espeon because it just made sense and I wanted to balance our team out a little bit. Fifth is Koga. He keeps his Ace Weezing. In Stadium, I know I keep picking Pokemon from Stadium, he uses a Parasect and Hypno, as well as a Magmar. He uses Lapras in his rematch, and for his final Pokemon I went with Electrode because he's seen keeping multiple underneath the gym. Next is Sabrina. She keeps her Ace of Alakazam along with Hitmonchan and Scizor in the Stadium games. I also gave her a Gengar because she's seen befriending one in the anime. For her other two Pokemon, I gave her Ninetales because it's the embodiment of wizards and very psychic, and Lapras because she's seen with one in the manga. After this is Blaine, who keeps his Ace of Arcanine. In terms of Stadium, he uses a Vileplume and a Kangaskhan. In the manga, it's confirmed that there is a Golem living under its gym, so let's add that. And that's all I can think of. Now, his gimmick is science, so I can give him a Magnezone and a Porygon 2. After this is Giovanni, who keeps his Ace Rhyhorn. I gave him some Team Rocket Pokemon such as Kangaskhan, Persian, and Weezing. I also gave him a Hypno and Gengar because they're evil. We're skipping Blue because he already has a well-balanced champion team, so let's move on to Johto. Faulkner keeps his Ace of Pidgeotto. He also uses several flying Pokemon such as Noctowl, Charizard, and Xatu. I also decided to be cheeky and give him an Articuno and Zapdos because he's used them before and they're in Johto. Bugsy keeps his Ace of Scyther and gets a Quagsire, Sudowoodo, and Raticate because of Stadium 2. I wasn't sure what else to give Bugsy, but I gave him a Jumpluff, which connects with nature like bugs, and a Politoed, another nature Pokemon. After this is Whitney, who keeps her Ace of Miltank. In the anime, she uses a Nidorino male, so we can evolve that into a Nidoking. She also has a Magbeam, which would evolve into a Magmortar. She also stole a Pikachu at one point, so we can evolve that into a Raichu. I also gave her a Snorlax and an Electabuzz, which are Pokemon that evolve from baby Pokemon, and that's what Whitney is most like. By the way, if you find any of this interesting, I recommend subscribing for daily Pokemon content. Anyway, after this is Morty, who keeps his Ace of Gengar, and then the rest of his Pokemon are filled out from other Pokemon he's used in Stadium, like Marowak, Noctowl, Lapras, Exeggutor, and Grunbull. Fifth is Chuck, who keeps his Ace of Poliwrath. He uses an Ursaring, Hypno, and Ampharos in Stadium. I also gave him a Wobbuffet as a training dummy, as well as a Machamp to spar with. Next is Jasmine, who keeps her Ace of Steelix. She uses an Ampharos because she's seen with one in Pokemon Tower. She would also use a Fortress and Slowbro as seen in Stadium. She along with Price are fans of contests, so I gave her a Leafeon and Espeon, which are contest Pokemon. Seventh is Price, who keeps his Ace of Mamoswine. In Stadium 2, he uses a Hitmontop as well as Ursaring and Donphan. His middle name is Willow, so I gave him a Jumpluff and an Executor to match the nature theme. 8th is Claire, and her team was pretty easy. Charizard, Kingdra, Dragonite, Gyarados, and Aerodactyl because they're all dragons. For her other Pokemon, I gave her a Tyranitar to fit the theme. 9th is Janine, who is the exact same team as Koga, with an exception of Venomoth being swapped for Weezing. First is Roxanne, whose Nose Pass evolves into a Probopass. She collects fossils, so I gave her an Armadillo and a Cradilly. She is high grade, so I gave her smart Pokemon like Alakazam and Mr. Mime. I also gave her a Swellow, which can be found on the route over from her gym. Second is Brawly, whose ace is a Hariyama. He lives on an island, so I gave him a Gyarados and Tentacruel, which can be found nearby. I also gave him a Crobat, Alakazam, and an Aggron, which can be found in Granite Cave. Third is Watson, who keeps his aces of Magnezone and Manectric. He also uses Electrode, which can be found in the basement of New Mauville. He needs a Pokemon to surf there, so I gave him a Whale Lord. He's crashed into a Donphan before, so I'd like to think he befriended it. Last, I gave him an Ampharos, which he uses in Black 2. I know it's not the most well-balanced team, but I was really stripped for ideas here. Fourth is Flannery. She keeps her aces of Torkoal and Camerupt. She also uses Ninetales for weather purposes. I gave her an Azumarill because, like her team, they both change genders between games. I also gave her a Vileplume and an Executor, which have Chlorophyll to take advantage of the sun that she likes. Fifth is Norman, who keeps his ace of Slaking. It's also common knowledge that Norman is from Johto, so I just gave him Johto Pokemon: Heracross, Ampharos, Crobat, Blossom, and Donphan. 6 is Winona, and her ace is Altaria. I also gave her a shiny Swellow, which she used in the anime, as well as a Pelipper. I also gave her a Walrein, Manectric with Thunder, and Ludicolo to take advantage of the rain. 7th are Tate and Liza, and their teams are pretty easy. Just give them Pokemon duos: Lunatone, Solrock, Machamp, and Gengar, Electabuzz, and Magmar, and we're all set. Wallace keeps his ace Milotic and gets Gyarados because I'm pretty sure he fished up for it at one point. Wallace is also known for contests, so I gave him some pretty Pokemon like Breloom, Lopunny, and Blissey. I also gave him a Dusknoir, which is another pretty Pokemon, but it also works because he keeps trainers in his basement. Juan has his ace of Kingdra and keeps Gyarados as well as Dusknoir. He also gets a Crobat, Mawile, and Sableye, which can be found in the Cave of Origin. Moving on to Sinnoh, starting with Rourke. He keeps his ace of Rampardos. He's seen wanting to collect fossils, so I gave him a Bastiodon, which can be used to honor his dad, Byron. I also gave him a Steelix for the same reason and the fact that he uses it. I gave him a Crobat because Zubat can be found in Orberg Mine. Lazily, I gave him a Gyarados and Wishcash from the Orberg Gate. Next is Gardenia, who keeps her ace of Roserade. She uses Sunlight, so I gave her a Ninetales to set the sun up. I also gave her a Torkoal, a powerful Pokemon, as well as an Executor to take advantage of the sun. She also has a Gengar and a Dusknoir because she's no longer scared of ghosts, at least according to me. 4th is Crasher Wake. He keeps his ace Gyarados as well as Quagsire. He also uses an Executor, which can be found on Route 18 where he's found. He also uses a Staraptor with Defog to protect Pastoria City. Lastly, he is an Exploiter because in the manga he's famous for making a psalm. And after this is Fantina. She keeps her ace of Mismagius. She likes contests, so I gave her pretty Pokemon like Milotic, Altaria, and Machamp. And for her last Pokemon, she has Pachirisu, which is cute enough to walk in Amity Square. Sixth is Byron, who keeps his ace of Bastiodon. I gave him a Rock-type Golem to honor his son, and since he's seen with fossils, the rest of the team can be filled out with them: Cradilly, Omanyte, and Kabutops. Finally, I gave him a Pelipper, which can be found on Iron Island. 7th is Candace. She keeps her aces of Abomasnow and Frostlass and then gets Medicham because she's used one before. In the anime, she uses a Turtwig and a Dodrio, so just evolve the Torterra and we're all set. Hello, this is Future Me recording. I'm not sure what to give Candace, but I think I decided on giving her a Gyarados because she wears blue. Honestly, this video is coming out pretty soon and I just don't have another Pokemon, so sorry about that. Finally for Sinnoh is Volkner, who already has a somewhat balanced team. He keeps Luxray as his ace and then Octillery and Ambipom from his Diamond and Pearl team. Lazily, I gave him a Gyarados and Gastrodon, which can be found nearby. Moving on to Unova with Silent, Chili, and Cress. They're basically the same person, so I'm giving them one team. I gave them a gimmick, which is that they use all 3 elemental monkeys regardless of the person. Then I gave them a Stoutland that all 3 of them use on their gym teams. I also gave them a Stunfisk and a Crustle because Silent uses them in the anime. Second is Lenora, who keeps her ace of Watchog. Lenora's name means ray of sunshine, so I gave her a Darmanitan and Executor to take advantage of the sun. Lastly, I gave her a Dragonite and Carracosta because they can be found in the museum which her gym is in. Burr keeps Levani, which is his ace, and since he's been a Pinwheel, we can give him a Seismitoad, Audino, and Unpheasant. He also has a Scrafty because he's been to the desert resort before. Lastly, I give him a Reuniclus because he's a canonical genius. Fourth is Elsa, who keeps her ace of Zebstrika. She's a model, so I gave her model Pokemon: Lopunny, Liepard, Gardevoir, Umbreon, and Espeon. Fifth is Clay, who keeps his ace of Excadrill. He also has a Galvantula because he aids the player in removing the web in Pokemon Black and White. We can fill his team with Pokemon caught in Chargestone Cave, Ferrothorn, and Probopass, and his other two Pokemon, Basculin and Zoroark, can be found in Driftville City. Skyla keeps her ace of Swanna. She has a Chandelure and Crobat, which can be found in Celestial Tower. She would also have a Zoroark, which can be found in Driftville City, a city she has visited. Lastly, she has a Dragonite because there's an airport in Hong Kong based on Dragonair. She likes flying Pokemon and airports for whatever reason. Bryson keeps his ace of Beartic. Real quick, I want to pause this video to say that Bryson is so cool. He's a Vigilante that doesn't use ice types, meaning we can fill out his team with a Bisharp, Scrafty, Zoroark, Mandibuzz, and a Honchkrow. 8th is Drayden and Iris, and they both keep their aces of Haxorus. The rest of their Pokemon can be filled from Iris' champion team. Those Pokemon are Archeops, Hydreigon, Druddigon, Lapras, and Aggron. After this, we get to the new gym leaders from Black 2 and White 2. First is Charon, who already has a well-balanced champion team. Just replace his starter with a Stoutland and keep his final black team of Liepard, Simipour, Unpheasant, Gigalith, and Haxorus. After this is Roxy, who keeps her a Solipede. The rest of her team is filled out with sound-based Pokemon like Maractus, Explouded, Bronzong, and Wigglytuff. Her final Pokemon is a Wobbuffet because she often uses random strategies. Marlin keeps his ace Jellicent. Other than that, it's pretty hard to find a good team for him, so I just gave him nearby Pokemon. He gets a Tangrowth from Himalayan City and gets a Mienshao and a Solrock, Delibird, and Pelipper from Route 22. Time to move on to Kalos. First is Viola. She keeps her ace Vivillon. She likes photography, so I gave her a Smeargle to paint the photos she takes and a Rotom because of the Rotom phone. I also gave her a Togekiss and Lucario to take nice photos of. Her and Grant have a close friendship, so I gave her a Tyrantrum to honor him. Speaking of Grant, he's next, so I gave him a Tyrantrum because that's his ace. He's a big rock climber, so I give him an Ariados to create ropes to climb the rocks with and a Machamp and Scizor to climb with. I also gave him a Vivillon because of his friendship with Viola. Lastly, he's a Gigalith because of rock climbing. Third is Karina, who keeps her ace of Hawlucha and then her Lucario, which she uses extensively. When she was younger, she helped receive a Mega Kangaskhanite so she could have a Kangaskhan. The rest of her team would be filled out with Mega Pokemon. Those Pokemon would be Abomasnow, Garchomp, Tyranitar, and Alakazam. Fourth is Ramos, who keeps Gogoat. Ramos gardens so he can fill out his team with Guardian Pokemon. Breloom for seeds, Talonflame to scatter seeds, Mr. Mime because he has a guarding tactic, and Diggersby to help soil the seeds, and lastly Cacturne to act as a scarecrow. Fifth is Clemont, who keeps his ace Helioptile. He also uses a Rotom because he created the Rotom Dex. He also uses Diggersby and Chestnut because he used them in the anime. Lastly, he uses a Porygon Z because it's related to science. Sixth is Valerie, who keeps her ace Sylveon. She's very rich, so I gave her a Persian, a rich Pokemon. She's from Johto, so she can just have Johto Pokemon: Grunble, Jumpluff, Heracross, and Ampharos. Seventh is Olympia, who keeps her ace Meowstic. She's very pure, so I gave her a Luffdisc, a pure Pokemon. And that's all I could think of, except for Clefable, which is space related. This means I have to give her nearby Pokemon from routes, which I just don't like doing. I settled with Mamoswine and Torkoal because those are nearby, like I said before. Last for Kalos is Wulfric, who keeps his ace of Abomasnow. The rest of his team is easy to fill because he's seen with Pokemon in the Pokemon Village. He would have an Amogus, Zoroark, Poliwrath, Noctowl, and a Banette. Moving on to Galar, because there are no Alola gym leaders, we start off with a Milo. He keeps his ace of Gossiflower, followed by Appletun or Flapple, depending on your game, because that's his new ace. He also has a Double and Voltine Pokemon that can be found in his gym. Like Ramos, he uses a Talonflame and Mr. Mime for gardening. Second is Nessa, who keeps her ace of Gigantamax Dreadnought. She would also have a Colossal found in Galar Mine number 2. The rest of her team is modeling Pokemon: Zarina, Gardevoir, Lopunny, and Machamp. Third is Kabu, who keeps his ace of Gigantamax Centiskorch. Since he's from Hoenn, we can fill the rest of his team with Hoenn Pokemon: Gardevoir, Aggron, Pelipper, Flygon, and Lanoon. Next is Bea, who keeps her Machamp. She uses Scizor, Wobbuffet, and Tauros as training partners. Lastly, she has a Dracovish and Artizote, which can be found nearby. After this is Alistar, who keeps his ace Gengar. He uses Torkoal, Kingdra, Spiritomb, and Explouded since they can use Smoke Screen and since he doesn't like being seen by crowds. Finally, he could have a Grimmsnarl, which can be found nearby. Next is Gordy, who keeps his ace Colossal. Since him and his mom don't really speak and she's also a gym leader, I decided to give her Pokemon to counter ice types, starting with Torkoal and Centiskorch, Grapplockt, Heracross, and Aggron. Same with his mother Melanie, who keeps her ace Lapras. Once again, I did the same thing and gave her Pokemon strong against Gordy's rock types: Golem, Rhyperior, Ludicolo, Venusaur, Pelipper, and Seismitoad. Next is Pierce. He keeps his ace of Obstagoon and then uses Rock and Punk Pokemon. Toxtricity, which he uses, Scrafty for his Punk appearance, as well as Muck. He can also use an Explouder to blast music, as well as a Scrafty for its Punk appearance. Last is Raihan, who already uses a well-balanced champion team. His ace is Durlodon, and he uses other Pokemon like Flygon, Torkoal, and Sandaconda. For his last two Pokemon, I gave him Abomasnow, which can set up a hail, and a Gigantamax Blastoise, which can not only set up the ring, but he can also use to beat Leon. And now we move on to Paldea, starting with Katie. She keeps her ace Ursaring, and she also uses a Low Kick, which is on her team. Her other Pokemon come from South Province too. Those Pokemon are Gengar, Ariados, Talonflame, and Ampharos. Second is Brassius, who keeps Sudowoodo and Ariabolva from his team. He then uses Pokemon from South Province 3 such as Honchkrow, Drifbloom, Pawmot, and Luxray. Third is Iono, and she uses Waltroll and Mismagius from her team. She also uses a Magnezone, which can be seen on the top of her head. The rest of her team is from East Province 3 such as Armarouge, Toedscool, and Dreadnought. Fourth is Kofu. He keeps Wugtrio and Cabralite from his team, and then the rest of his Pokemon are found in Asado Desert and West Province. In Asado, he uses Donphan and Stonjourner, and from West Province he uses Dreadnought and Kilomotral. Fifth is Larry, who's already an Elite Four member, so all we have to do is slap on a Staraptor to his flying team of Tropius, Oricorio, Altaria, Staraptor, and Flamigo, and we're good. Sixth is Rhyme, who keeps Toxtricity and Houndstone from her team. She would then use Pokemon from Glissadio Mountain, like Ampharos, Flareon, Ursaring, and Slaking. Seventh is Tulip. She keeps Florges and Farafrig from her team. She then uses Dashbun, Altaria, Gogoat, Toxtricity, and Clodsire from the nearby South Province. Last is Grusha. She keeps her Altaria and Titan from her team. The rest of her team is filled out with Pokemon from the nearby mountains such as Magnezone, Weavile, Caporaja, and Gallade. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, comment, like, and subscribe. If you have a video suggestion, tell me in the comments below, and I'll catch you later. Also, sorry for butchering so many Pokemon names.